Good morning, everyone. This is Carolyn Ward with the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. I'd like to welcome everybody to this edition of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation's Insiders Report. And this time we're going to go behind the scenes at the Blue Ridge Music Center. A couple things before we get started. If you move your mouse across your screen, you will see icons show up at the bottom. There's a Q&A icon. If you click that, you can submit a question at any time during the presentation. We will try to answer as many of those questions as we can at the end of the talk, and we will respond back to you individually for those that we may not be able to get to during the presentation. There is an icon to the left of the bottom of your screen that has like a little telephone. You can click that icon. If you're having trouble with your audio, you can switch to phone audio, and it will bring the numbers up for you to call if you're having trouble hearing. So once again, please feel free to submit a question during the presentation, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can at the end. And without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Richard Emmett, who is the program director for the Blue Ridge Music Center. He's been in that role since 2014. Helping bring live music to the stage of the Blue Ridge Music Center, keeping the traditions of mountain music alive. So Richard, it's all yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for a virtual tour of the Blue Ridge Music Center. For those of you that have been there, this might cover a little bit of familiar ground, but for those of you that haven't, we hope it'll get you in the mood to come up and visit us at the Blue Ridge Music Center. And first off, I want to apologize if you hear any background noise. I'm here at the Parkway Foundation office in Winston-Salem, and today happens to be landscaping day, so they're doing some leaf blowing and stuff. And so if there's a little background, I apologize. You see our new logo up on the screen, Blue Ridge Music Center. It's a great new logo. We're happy to unveil it this year. We think it represents what we are, where we are, and it looks great. Blue Ridge Music Center celebrates the music and the musicians of the mountains. Music Center is operated by the National Park Service, and the programs there are managed and coordinated and funded by the Parkway Foundation. This is a sign that'll greet you as you're driving on the Parkway when you get to the Music Center. Music Center is located at milepost 213, just across the North Carolina-Virginia state line, south of Galax, Virginia, north of Mount Airy. We are about an hour from Winston, an hour and a half from Greensboro, and a little less than 2 hours from Roanoke, Charlotte, and Raleigh-Durham. We're one of two national park facilities that is unique in celebrating the authentic and influential forms of traditional American music. And I'm going to let you try to guess the other for a second before I flip the slide. Oh, we missed it. Oh, the other one is the National Jazz Historic Museum in New Orleans, celebrating the jazz ragtime traditions. I think we took that slide out, apologize. The Music Center is unique in that we represent and are part of two great music trails, the Crooked Road, Virginia's musical heritage trails, as well as the Blue Ridge Music Trails of North Carolina. And we like to think of ourselves as a portal and a gateway to all the great cultural events and festivals and venues in both those regions. How the Music Center came to be, here's a very brief and shortened timeline, but in 2000, they broke ground on the construction of the amphitheater, which was completed in 2002. Officially, the concerts started in the amphitheater at that time. In 2003, they broke ground on the Interpretive and Visitor Center, which was completed and opened in 2005 with some temporary exhibits. And then finally, in 2011, the Roots of American Music Center Permanent Museum exhibit was opened in the Interpretive Center of the Music Center. This is a photo of Joe Wilson with Gary Everhart from the Blue Ridge Parkway, the former superintendent of the Blue Ridge Parkway National Park Service. And they were the two who, a rumor has it, on a napkin in 1990s, kind of created the idea for the center. I think actually it was 1987. Joe Wilson was the longtime executive director of the National Council for Traditional Arts that put on the National Folk Festival. He came up with the idea of taking the folk festival around the country and letting different communities host it. It was in Greensboro a few years back, and right now it's in Salisbury, Maryland. But Joe kind of literally wrote the book on traditional music. This is his guide to the Crooked Road, but he also coordinated and was very influential in the story that is told in the exhibit. We've got some great hiking trails at the Blue Ridge Music Center, so you don't just come up to visit the visitor center or hear the music. You can have some great opportunities to get out in the nature. The two hiking trails are the High Meadow Trail and the Fisher Peak Loop Trail. High Meadow Trail is an easy to moderate trail. Fisher Peak Loop Trail is a moderate to strenuous trail. Here's a map of those trails. The High Meadow Trail is one of the Kids in Parks track trails for kids and families, one of the great programs of the Parkway Foundation. They put out some brochures to help kids learn some stuff while they're on the trails. This is one example from the Outdoor Orchestra brochure, and then you can see a highlight from the Music of the Mountains brochure that features Wayne Henderson on the cover, one of our great local traditional musicians. Here's the inside of the Music of the Mountains brochure with activities to help kids learn about different types of wood and the woods that are used in instruments that are found on the trails and in nature. Some great pictures from the hikes and trails. The visitor center at the Blue Ridge Music Center is built in the style of kind of an old barn, in keeping with the local architectural flavor. It includes an information desk where visitors can ask questions on their travels on the Parkway and about the museum and about other events and festivals and venues in the area. A couple of great pictures of the grounds of the Music Center. That's longtime music ranger Janet Bachman with Ranger Kyle Stanley giving a presentation to some visitors. America's National Parks runs a wonderful gift shop inside the visitor center, so you can take home a piece of the Blue Ridge Music Center or the Parkway with you when you visit. And here's the start of the Roots of American Music exhibit. The exhibit is dedicated to the musicians of the Blue Ridge, past and present, and honors their joyful keeping of a portion of America's musical traditions and their unfailing hospitality and generosity. Among the lessons that they have taught us is that an art form freely and always shared can be kept forever. There's some other views of the exhibit. Unfortunately, the exhibit, because of COVID, is not in place this year. We look forward to next year when folks can visit the exhibit again. Here's another part of the exhibit. This is the piece on radio and recording. The exhibit was designed by consultants Ralph Applebaum and Associates, who also have consulted on the design of the Bill Clinton Presidential Library, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and the Museum of African American History and Culture. Another shot of a part of the exhibit. The exhibit tells the story of, the communities around Fisher Peak that are nationally recognized as a center of traditional Blue Ridge Mountain music. The melodies arise from diverse ethnic groups and have evolved over generations into distinct styles. One more view of the exhibits at the Music Center. And the artifacts, we have lots of great examples of historic instruments, and built by many of them built by local luthiers and craftsmen. These are stored and taken care of by Jackie Holt, the curator with the Blue Ridge Parkway in the National Park Service. They are stored in a climate-controlled facility over the winter and then brought back to the Music Center for the season so people can view them. I'm going to give a very brief summary of the story told in the Blue Ridge Music Center's Roots of American Music exhibit. As I told you, this is all work that has been done by many people and many books and articles that have been written about this over the years. This is a map of the migration from Europe and Africa to coastal America. The European fiddle met the African banjo in the colonial times in the Tidewater, and it formed the first American ensemble, kind of the root of the root, the earliest beginnings of country music, jazz, bluegrass, blues, and rock and roll. Britain's colonies in North America were settled mostly by Scotch-Irish Protestants from the Ulster region, Northern Ireland, also English and Germans, and the enslaved people that were brought over from Africa. Here's a map that shows the Great Wagon Road and the migration patterns into the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains from the north, Philadelphia and elsewhere, and where they settled. A century and a half after the first settlements on the English seaboard, streams of migration from Europe and coastal American settlements reached the Blue Ridge. Between 1730 and 1830, waves of land-seeking Scotch-Irish and Germans settlers came down the wagon road, along with folks from the coastal region. And it was estimated that by the mid-50s, 1 in 4 Americans that had settled in the South had come down the wagon road. Here in the new settlements in the Blue Ridge, first American frontier, music from many places met and blended, and a new American music emerged. This is a really famous photo of a dance, possibly at a wedding celebration. You can see on the right an early gourd banjo that was brought over from West Africa. At first, this picture was thought to be from Africa, but then it was recognized that it was taken in the Tidewater region of Virginia, most likely, and shows an early banjo being played. This is a picture of William Sidney Mounts called Dance of the Haymakers. It shows the musical exchange of music, the fiddle music from the European Scots-Irish folks and the young African-American boys playing along with some percussion there. As settlement intensified, so did the sharing of musical ideas. The banjo and fiddle came to play a central role in the social music shared between all classes, races, and communities. Here's another William Sidney Mount picture of a young man playing the banjo, and then a Mary Cassatt picture. The banjo player picture is from 1856, and the Mary Cassatt painting is from 1893. It just shows you that all kinds of folks played these instruments, and the music was shared widely amongst communities. Here's on the left an example of some religious singers. These are the old harp singers at the Sulphur Springs Campground in Tennessee in the early 1900s, and an example of a brush arbor sing, where people build a little brush arbor where the singers could get shade and people would come and sing. This particular one is in Scott County, Virginia in the 1930s. Picture on your left is a railroad bridge from the mid-19th century. Photo on the bridge is from Virginia's Orange and Alexander Railroad. In the mid-19th century, railroading and the Civil War spread songs, stories, and instruments like the banjo across America. And on the right is a picture from the USS Hunchback, officers and crew on the deck of the ship, 1864, James River, Virginia. Obviously, you can see the banjo there. The banjo was a popular instrument among Civil War soldiers. This is a picture of an early circus, traveling circus. Between 1803 and 1853, the U.S. tripled in physical space, and the music that developed on the frontier was especially influential because at the time of this growth, the primary overland migration route ran through the region, and it incubated American sounds that were carried across the nation. And then groups like this, traveling performers and entertainers, took that music and spread it even farther into smaller communities and big cities equally. These traveling shows, which started at the end of the American Revolution, and by the 1940s, it developed into what it was a uniquely American music and stage entertainment called minstrelsy, which became very popular. Minstrelsy's heyday was in the early 19th century, and it became one of the most popular forms of entertainment, notwithstanding its overtly racist portrayal and insults, which over time led African Americans to give up the banjo and move to the guitar, America's instrument that was developed in the early 1900s. These are two pictures from traveling circuses. On the left is John Ricketts, who was known as kind of one of the first and most famous traveling circus purveyors. He was a performer as well. And on the right is John Durang, who's credited as America's first professional dancer. He danced in many of the performances and traveling shows. These two pictures of two of the most famous minstrel players from the Virginia minstrels. On the left is Daniel Decatur Emmett. He wrote the song Dixie and Old Dan Tucker and others. And on the right is Joel Sweeney. Joel is known for popularizing the banjo style and in the kind of banjo, even in make, that is played today. At this time, one of the most popular composers that you may have heard of was Stephen Foster. He composed a lot of music for the traveling shows and the minstrel shows. That music was passed on and through the communities in Virginia and North Carolina, and from the late to mid 1800s, mid to late 1800s to the early 1900s, folks like Emmett Lundy, pictured here, from Grayson County, learned from many pre-Civil War players and passed along the music. Emmett was one of the members of the Ballard's Branch Bogtrotters. Here's Uncle Norman Edmonds, who was a very famous fiddle player from Whites County, Virginia. He played fiddle for the Bristol Sessions, the big bang of country music where the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers became well known. And here's some of the songs that you may have heard of that he played in that session were Train on the Island and Black Eyed Susie. Standing next to him in this picture is his grandson, Jimmy, who continues to play and build instruments in Galax, Virginia. He's a fifth generation musician. On the right is Wade Ward, who's a exemplary Grayson County, Virginia banjo player who mastered the clawhammer style that is known from that area. He's shown with Dorothy Queensberry Rourke, a ballad singer, banjo, and fiddler from Carroll County. This is Charlie McReynolds, whose sons became very famous in the bluegrass music industry, Jim and Jesse, the Virginia Boys. Charlie was born in 1873, and he played in a band out of Coburn, Virginia called the Bull County Moonshiners. Texas Gladden on the right was a wonderful singer of traditional ballads from Saltsville, and she had over 200 songs in her repertoire. Many of them were recorded by Alan Lomax, and some of them were covered by Joan Baez in the 60s revival. Here's a couple of North Carolina musicians and also dancers, of course. Samantha Baumgardner from Dillsworth was a great fiddle player and banjoist, and Stanley Hicks from the Hicks family, many generations of players, dancers, and storytellers. This is a 1911 picture from Washington Mill in Fries, Virginia, one of the first mills, textile mills in the area of the Blue Ridge. A lot of the musicians worked in the mills, and we did last year a whole conference on Milltown and American music. Around the mill towns, lots of fiddle conventions became popular as more people were playing music and sharing music. This is a picture of a Seminole Mountain Fiddlers Convention from Mountain City, Tennessee in 1925. It featured many of the early radio and recording stars. Oops, sorry about that. This is a picture of the Hillbillies, the first band that is credited with kind of naming the genre, so to speak. And they were from both Western North Carolina and Grayson and Carroll counties. They were formed in 1924, and they were known as the first country musicians to perform in New York in 1927. And they performed for Calvin Coolidge, and then the president. And they were the first to first musicians to appear in a movie when they shot a film for Al Jolson's Singing Fool. Tony Alderman was the owner of a barbershop in Galax. He's the fiddle player, and that barbershop is now Barr's Fiddle Shop. And John Rector was another important figure. We're going to play you a really brief slice of their music. All right. Hope everyone could hear that okay. So the records and recording industry became big in the 20s and 30s. Here's an OK Records advertisement for Fiddle and John Carson and one of the mill workers from Freeze Mill, Henry Whittier, who were some of the first to be recorded, and a little newspaper outtake that talks about musicians of the mountains going to make records in New York and Bristol and elsewhere. The Carter family was the first to make it really big in country music, and one of the reasons they made it big was because of border blaster radio that was so powerful that was outlawed in the U.S., and so some of the owners of the radio took it right across the border in Mexico. They hired the Carter family to come and play. The Carter family had gotten known from the Bristol Sessions in 1927 in Bristol, and they came down for 3 years into Texas and Mexico and played a variety show that people could hear all over the country, even into Canada. As we've noted earlier, the American music, traditional American roots music, was a mixture of the banjo and the fiddle and the African and the European and the German. And here is a picture on the right of Leslie Riddle, who was an inspiration and traveled around with A.P. Carter on the left, picking up songs, and they got songs from people in communities and then reworked those songs into the music of the Carter family. The Ballards Branch Bogtrotters were a well-known string band from the early 30s in Galax, Virginia. Eck Dunford and Emmett Lundy were in those bands, both influential musicians in the region. The festivals in the region started to get folk festivals and fiddle conventions started to get very popular. Even Eleanor Roosevelt visited the White Top Mountain Folk Festival in White Top Mountain, Virginia in 1935. You can see her at the top of the picture on the right. And then that music was carried forward by the next generation of performers. And we're going to show you a few from North Carolina, the Round Peak area. The Galax sound and the Round Peak sound are well known throughout old time and traditional music. It is kind of a driving, high energy style of string band dance music. Tommy Jarrell, whose father Ben was an early player, he's pictured on the left. His fiddle is at the Smithsonian Museum, and Tommy's a National Heritage Award winner. And on the right is Fred Cockram. They often played together and were well known throughout the country. Many people came to visit them down in North Carolina in the 60s folk revival to learn their music, including Paul Brown from NPR and WFDD, who had a long-time old-time music show on the radio. This is a picture of the Camp Creek Boys on the left, and Kyle Creed on the right, who was a member of the Camp Creek Boys. Kyle, for a long time, had a store in Carroll County, Virginia, and is well known amongst banjo players as a very proponent of the Galax and Round Peak styles. And he was in the Camp Creek Band, along with a number of other wonderful players. Here's a picture of Virginia musicians. Wayne Henderson, young Wayne Henderson on the left with his dad and his brother Max at their home in Rugby, Virginia. Wayne was influenced by fiddler Albert Hash from the White Top Mountain area. He was a great instrument maker as well as player, and Wayne learned a lot from Albert as well as Estill and Oe Ball from his rugby community. Here's a picture of Bill Monroe. Old-time music became, with the advent of technology, particularly microphones, more of a listening style music, and bluegrass became very popular in the 50s and 60s, and Bill was one of the first to make that popular. And of course, his Bluegrass Boys was why they named the music bluegrass. This is Ralph and Carter Stanley. We're going to play you a brief snippet from them. All right. So as you can hear, bluegrass blended instrumentals and vocals. It kind of, bluegrass is known for the instrumental breaks where each of the different instruments gets a chance to shine and show their virtuosity. So I hope you enjoyed that short little brief history of the Roots of American Music exhibit. It goes into a lot more depth in the exhibit. And if you're like me and enjoy the history of the music and the history of the cultural traditions of the region, you will be able to spend hours there. And so we hope you'll come visit and check that out. The Music Center, as Carolyn noted earlier, we kind of manage the music programs there, and we have two great programs. One is our Midday Mountain Music that is from noon to 4 daily, any day the Music Center is open on the covered breezeway. We have some great performers, Bobby Patterson on the left, who passed away a few years ago, and Willard Gayhart, who is still going strong and performing, kind of decided in 2006, right after the Visitor Center opened, to start the Midday Mountain Music. And now we have many performers today. This is the Friday Bluegrass Jam. This is the Buck Mountain Band that performs on Monday. Bobby and Scott Freeman, Willard and Scott Freeman, Willard's son-in-law, Scott. The Andersons, Bill Lloyd, who plays on Saturdays. And of course, many of you may have heard of our summer concert series, the Roots of American Music summer shows between Memorial Day and Labor Day in our beautiful outdoor amphitheater. There's some pictures of it. We've had many National Heritage Award winners perform there. That's Jesse McReynolds, Ralph Stanley, Doc Watson, Phil Wiggins, Sheila K. Adams. There was a show that honored Joe Wilson after he passed away, Allison Krauss, Ricky Skaggs, Jerry Douglas, and the Whites. That's a picture of them backstage at the Music Center from that show. The Old Crow Medicine Show and one of our biggest crowds at the Music Center. Carolina Chocolate Drops, Rihanna Giddens, and Dom Clemens, a picture backstage from their performance. Sierra Hull, Brian Sutton, a great award-winning guitarist. One of the favorites of the Blue Ridge Music Center audience, Steep Canyon Rangers. Another favorite, the Kruger Brothers. Oh, sorry about that. That's the Lonesome River Band. I'm going to skip that video. Running short on time here. Steel Wheels. That's Wayne Hendrickson, some of our master musicians from the area that we feature. Eddie Bond, who was awarded the National Heritage Award recently and has helped lead the jam at the Frieze Theater. That's the new Ballard's Branch Bogstrouter, so the new version of took on the name of the older band with Eddie Bond. The Gospel of the Ingramettes. Almeda Ingramette took over for her mom after she passed, and these ladies spread gospel music all throughout the South, a great group. Riley Bogus and David Holt. That's C.T. Janey, a great washboard player and dancer. The Ali Sissiko playing the kora from West Africa, Big Ron Hunter. That's three generations, Willard Gayhart, Scott Freeman, and his granddaughter, Dory Freeman. The White Top Mountain Band featured in the exhibit at the Music Center. Martha and her brother on the right, Kilby with the fiddle, both playing their own bands. Amethyst Kia, Dory Freeman, Elizabeth Laprelle, great ballad singer, and Stevie Barr, who runs with his dad the Barr's Fiddle Shop in Galax, who's an exceptional banjo player. Presley Barker and Shadowgrass. Presley's playing guitar. Sierra Farrell is a great young singer from West Virginia. And of course, there's always dancing at the Music Center, especially with the string band. So if you come up, you're likely to see some dancing, and you are always welcome to join in. And we're going to end with a brief video of a great video captured of two dancers, including C.T. Janey and a gentleman named Sarge. you'd like to support the programming at the Blue Ridge Music Center, you can donate urpfoundation.org/music or by texting us at the number there. Thank you very much for joining in. Hope you learned something and enjoyed it, and we hope you'll come visit us soon at the Music Center. We're open Thursday through Sunday through the end of October. We have our final concert this Saturday night from 6 to 8 in the amphitheater. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Richard, for giving us a behind-the-scenes tour of the Blue Ridge Music Center. It has some amazing opportunities for you to come in and experience a little bit of the history and experience the Music Mountain traditions today. And so, Richard, we had several questions, and we have time for just one. And someone wanted to know about the music that's available at the Blue Ridge Music Center. So can you once again let everyone know about both Midday Mountain music and about the last concert of the season coming up this Saturday?
Absolutely, happy to. So our Midday Mountain music, local and regional traditional musicians play every day the Music Center's open. This year, that's Thursday through Sunday. They perform from noon to 4 on the Breezeway. A schedule can be found on our website. The musicians are different every day. They rotate. And then, of course, as Carolyn noted, our final concert that was rescheduled from August due to the weather will be held this Saturday, the 19th of September from 6 to 8. Admission gates open at 5. It's socially distant. Everybody's 6 to 8 feet apart. We highly recommend masks, especially when people are gathering through the way into the concert or any other places where people congregate. And it features the Chatham Rabbits, a great old-time band from the Raleigh-Durham area, as well as Cane Mill Road from Western North Carolina.
Richard, thank you so much. And we hope to see those of you that are out there in the virtual world, perhaps at the Music Center one day for Midday Mountain Music or for the final concert this Saturday. Thanks again for joining us in the continuing series of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation's Insiders Report. We hope you have a great day.